evening, Cubs and Cardinals fans. It is October 11th, and this week on the Team Rivals podcast, Pete is out, but John Pearman from the Cubs Cardcast is in. Tonight, we're going to talk about Chris Bryant and his rejecting an offer of an extension with the Chicago Cubs. Adam Wainwright returns for one more year with the Cardinals, and arbitration projections are out. Who gives a shit? Team Rivals podcast starts now.
Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. There's a drive. Way back. It might be. It could be. And a high drive into left. Back goes the Craig. He's at the track. He has it. The world champion for 2011. A little bouncer slowly toward Bryant. He will glove it to Rizzo. It's in time, and the Chicago Cubs win the World Series.
This is the Team of Rivals podcast. No insiders, no anonymous sources, just passionate analysis from the bleacher seats. Here are your hosts, Ron Nuttall and Peter Geddes.
And Elliot Dewey, and Brecklin Carey. I didn't play the right intro, did I, guys?
No.
Oh well. No
it's
Pete,
just,
no right intro. That's how everything started off tonight. Ultra smooth. This week in the Nuttall household, whatever the kids decide to bring home in the fall usually passes around from person to person. So I'm not sure what kind of upper respiratory infection has passed through our house, but I've got my voice back. I was a little concerned early on. But we're without our Wookiee tonight, being Pete. So in his place is welcome him onto the show again for the second time this year would be John Pearman from the Cubs Cardscast. He is the Cubs half of the Cubs Cardscast. John, how are you, man?
I'm good. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here, and I will do a poor job of filling Pete's shoes, but I'm glad to have the opportunity.
Yeah, I tell you what, if you want to, you could have been half crocked and filled Pete's shoes tonight. He was so downtrodden last week. I don't know how you guys feel, but I was really surprised at how ready he was for the Cubs to be done, because I think he was kind of it seemed like he had his fill.
I felt the same way Pete did. Yeah.
That's strange. We'll have to let you elaborate on that. See if you guys are thinking the exact same thing. Elliot, I'm not sure you were with him, but
I mean, it was the culmination of a disappointing season that just came to an end, and it almost was like, well, thank God that shit show's over. I mean, that's kind of how it felt, because if that offense was going to be like that, just kind of maddening to where
you mean like ours for the last 3 years? I don't feel sorry for you at all. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
But anyways, the Cubs have taken step one in that transition for next year, though.
They have. Yeah. I think Chili's off.
Yeah. Yep. Chili's out. Yeah, there will be no chili through the winter. But they, and it's just 1 year after they fired what had been a very successful hitting coach in John Maley to make room for Chili, saying that they would only hire Chili of all of the potential hitting coaches that were out there, and they wouldn't have fired Maley if Chili wasn't available. And then, obviously he wasn't the answer. I think firing the hitting coach is always a cop-out. You guys might have been clamoring for Mabry's firing back in the day, but that certainly wasn't the problem with your offense. So, I think the same's true for the Cubs.
Yeah. That's I don't know. I don't know what kind. I kind of agree with you, John. I mean, I think that in the case of John Mabry, I think it was just looking at that dead stare, his eyes in the dugout all the time, that I just wanted to see a different face there. I didn't care who it was. I mean, you could have put a damn mannequin over there, and I think been as effective as John Mabry was towards the end of his days. But before we get on to anything else, John, for our listeners who didn't catch you and Dan on the show last time, some of the ones who are listening to our show that maybe don't know about the Cubs Cardscast, why don't you fill in our listeners a little bit on yourself and a little bit about what you and Dan do?
Yeah, we were fortunate in 2015 to start the Cubs Cards Cast at the time that the Cubs actually got decent. At least from my perspective, it was a good time to start it. If we'd started a few years earlier, it would have been pretty ugly. But at the time, we didn't know of any other podcast that was out there that was doing sort of the Cubs Cardinals rivalry. I'm from Central Illinois originally, right at the dividing line between Cubs and Cardinal land, where you can both tune in WGN back in the day that used to carry Cub games, and KMOX. So I grew up, in the heart of rivalry country. Dan grew up in St. Louis, so it made a lot of sense for us. We were both, business partners and fighting about this every day, so we decided we'd record it.
Yeah.
So it was at least an argument that we could share with other people at that point. So and we've been doing it for a few years, and it's fun to see other podcasts coming on, and we learn a lot from watching and listening to all the rest of you as well, and it's a lot more fun. The more the merrier.
Yeah, we've Pete and I started this because we had we'd been talking on the phone so often or exchanging like a million texts every night, and then we actually came up with the idea during the playoffs in 2016 that we're spending all kinds of time doing this. Maybe we should just be maybe we should just start recording these conversations and just see if it takes off, we even enjoy doing it. So we kind of we really stumbled into it, but by doing that, John, I kind of like I was introduced to the show you and Dan do, but then all these other Cardinal podcasts do. It's just been great because now I've made a lot of personal relationships with a lot of these guys who do these. So it's been a great deal of fun. We've got to bring Brecklin on board. She's new. I think you're in your 5th or 6th show as a full timer here. And then we've brought in Elliot last December because we needed. I couldn't get enough of Cubs talk, so I brought in another.
That's right.
He brought in another Cubs fan before he brought in another Cardinals fan.
I know.
What does that tell you?
I couldn't find the right talent, Brecklin.
Oh, you were waiting for me. I'm flattered.
That's right. That's right. I mean, here's the thing. I've become a lot less stingy with the mic time. I mean, I don't know. I couldn't have dealt with another Cardinal fan giving their opinion because I was basically like a Stugotz given a microphone and just be given free reign to only talk about my team, and nobody else could like have an opinion but me on the Cardinals. And so that wore out. Nobody wants to listen to me full time. So, all right. Well, I want to jump into some things, John, since we haven't talked to you since June. I know that we were heading into a Cubs Cardinals series that weekend, and all of us were predicting that our teams would get swept, which would have been some kind of anomaly if both the Cubs and Cardinals both got swept that weekend and they played each other. But I think the Cubs came out on top of that one. I think they took
two out of 3 on that one. Yeah, I was wrong. Gladly.
Yeah, I was wrong. We were all wrong. But now that the season is over, you kind of heard Elliot's thoughts on this. I know I had listened to a postseason show that you and Dan have done. Just give us your just overall impression. What did you take away from this year? And we can talk about next year a little bit later on. But just give us your 2018 take. Cubs half of Cubs Cards Cast.
Sure. And, it sounds so awful given how many bad years as a Cub fan so many of us have endured to say, that you're disappointed in a 95-win season that ends, with a playoff berth. But it's impossible over the last few years to come away from this season feeling anything but disappointed, I think. Hopefully Elliot agrees with me on this point, but it's just it was very frustrating to watch this team all year. I think their longest winning streak was maybe 7 games. There was a streak where they were like 11-2, and I think they maybe had a 7-game winning streak, and I think the most they ever lost in a row was either 4 or 5. So it's not like they were high highs or low lows with this team, like there were with the Cardinals, when the Cardinals, after they changed managers, went on a nice little run there and they looked like they had, some movement. Cubs did that right around that last month of the season where they had the 29 games in 30 days. They started that stretch out real well. They beat some good pitchers, seemed like they were coming together. And then they just stopped scoring runs consistently. And, and there isn't a good explanation for it, because it isn't like you look at it and you say, well, the lineup, like look at the Cardinals lineup and you say, well, hey, Carpenter had a bad first 70 games, had a bad last 70 games, but the ones in the middle were awesome, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it wasn't that many. That's an exaggeration, but
that's right. That would be 210 games. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying there were 70 in the middle. I'm saying he started out really bad.
That would have left him with 22 really good games in the middle.
Yeah,
which might be about right.
Yeah, it may be 30 or 40 games in the middle, but whatever it was, he made them count. And but there wasn't anybody else on your offense. The Cubs, conversely, had 5 or 6 guys that should have been contributing, and I think the talent was there. And the frustrating thing for fans is all we heard all year long was every time they stepped to a microphone after a disappointing loss, it said, "Well, we know the talent's there, and we're sure it's going to be there at the end of the year." That's not intensity. That's I'm sitting back, I'm resting on my laurels, and I'm counting on our ability to sustain us here. And the reality is they got their ass whooped. I feel like over the last half of the season, both by the Cardinals and the Brewers. The Brewers obviously ran away with it, but the Cubs didn't match the intensity of their competitors, and that's the frustrating thing from a fan standpoint.
Yeah, because that's the kind of thing that statistics aren't going to break that down for you. It's kind of the eyeball thing, and you can see it. You can see energy in the dugout. I mean, you can only see what the camera shows you, but you can definitely pick up on that, John. And I know where you're coming from. I've seen my team's intensity level come and go pretty frequent. It's on and off, and it has been for 3 years. So it is wildly frustrating because there's some talent there. It's just not consistent. They just couldn't seem to put anything together. But
well, the one statistic I can give you, Ron, is in 163 games, there were 40 instances where the Cubs scored 1 run or less.
That is amazing. Yeah, that is an amazing stat. Now,
there's only one other team that did that, 40 games of 1 run or less, and they lost 115 games. That was the Baltimore Orioles. So to win 95 doing that, that says something about their up and down nature.
Yeah, I was going to say, at what point does that just become really impressive? Or it's like, hey, guess what we can do and still not completely drown.
Hey, Orioles, hold my beer. pretty
I tell you what, who's not going to be holding a beer at an Orioles game anymore, and that's Buck Showalter. Now, the funny thing is that so he was let go by Baltimore, but is it really being let go? If you're the manager of the Baltimore Orioles, you lose 115 games. Your organization, who knows what the hell direction they're going into. I think the owner has dementia, but is that? Are you really being let go, or are you being given an exodus?
Rescued. I think.
I think he had his exit box all packed up, so he was ready to walk out the door.
And then the Dan Duquette. Again, I'll use the same example. Dealing with that ownership, or was that really not returning, or is that like, I'm getting the hell out of here? You released whatever comments you want to the public. I don't care. I'm going to find a job somewhere else. But yeah, it's for as bad as we feel. Somebody posted this up. I saw this quote too. You could be an Orioles fan. That's supposed to make me feel better, and it doesn't. I mean, I don't know. I guess you just get numb if you're an Orioles. Like if you're a baseball junkie and you're an Orioles fan, you have to at some point in time it has to be just numb. You.
That's what I was wondering, because I mean we go back and forth. I mean with the Cardinals, talking about at times we were even saying like I'd rather be anxious than just not have no hope at all. But at what point, like what's worse, just sitting there expecting not to win and being in that numb state, or like having your emotions tossed back and forth all the time?
Elliot,
the numb state was for the Cubs fans 2011, 2012, 2013. I mean, those were seasons where we were losing 90 to 100 games a year. I mean, some of those were on purpose because we were trying to get high draft picks in our tanking years. But still, it's you want to enjoy your baseball team that you're passionate about as a fan, and you're just kind of like, well, this sucks. I mean, it's like every single game during the season.
I was gonna say, Elliot, you should add this to a Twitter poll question: is being an Orioles fan equivalent to just being on death row?
Ooh.
I don't know if it's that bad.
Yeah, that's
pretty bad. Would you rather be an Orioles fan or on death row?
I might rather be on death row. I know there's an end to it.
Yeah, right. You know, at one point there's going to be an expiration date for the pain. At this point, you just don't really know.
Right. There's at least a payoff for death row. There might not be for being an Orioles fan.
Well,
Oh,
yeah, I'm 48, and my father is 89. My father had waited his entire life for the Cubs to win a World Series. At least the Orioles fans did see some good seasons, you know, at various points. For Cub fans, there haven't really been any. So until 2016, that was pretty much it. So
yeah, I mean, well, they had a flirt with what in 2000. I think 2001 through 2003 wasn't a terrible stretch for the
2003 was it ended badly, but yeah, it was okay. In 2008 and 2009, we won divisions, at that point, but then we're swept in the playoffs in both of those years.
So Arizona in
LA.
2000, it's Arizona and LA. Oh God, those are awful.
Yeah, but there weren't a whole lot. 1945 was a good year, I'm told. Other than that, all we ever talked about were 1908, 1907, the good old days. So,
good old days.
So I've got family members that are Cub fans too, right? So I've got a pretty, and I'm from a similar area of Illinois that you're from, John, where it was pretty much 50-50. You had to really watch yourself. I wasn't going to date a Cub fan in high school, but it was like I didn't have a lot to pick from, so I might have had to, settle every once in a while. But I remember there were when my first son was born, him and his cousin parents happened to be Cub fans, and my wife and I and child were Cardinals fans, and they got him these baby books, and one was Cubs and one was Cardinals, and the very last page was the number of trophies. This was like 2006 too, right? So I mean, it was only 2 that the Cubs had on there. So I just made sure that the little kids saw those pages and they look at this. I mean, that's what kind of household I lived in.
Those were back-to-back trophies, though. So
that's true. I don't think the Cardinals have ever done that. That's true. That's a good point. The Cardinals have not won back-to-back. I don't believe. But anyway, John, I want to get your.
I don't think so either.
So that wild card game, John, just what was your take on that? Because I watched the whole thing and I thought it was a pretty decent game. It was definitely on edge. I know as a Cub fan, you were probably frustrated because you just didn't see the offense going. Probably a lot of the same things you were describing the season there. Is that really what it came down to? The way the Cubs played over that last month? Is that what that wild card game captured?
Yeah, I think it was almost a perfect season in a nutshell. Where now, granted, the first half of the season, the Cubs did not get good starting pitching, and they managed to finish 10th or 11th overall, depending on what statistics you're looking at in starting pitching, which is pretty miraculous given how they started the season. But it was solid enough that they got what they needed. Having Quintana against the Brewers made a lot of sense. That was a great start. And they should have won the division outright. And there are so many 96th wins that were left on the table over the course of the year that it's ridiculous to even have to play a wild card game. But
and some of that has to do with injuries, John.
Sure.
I mean, it's almost like every time there was a blow to the Cubs, it kind of hit morale. I mean, between Darvish going down and then Morrow being sidelined, and then Strop hurting himself trying to lay out a hit, and Bryant for half the season. I mean, he was batting .311. I mean, he was on pace for a fantastic year, and then he, slides headfirst into first base and pretty much sidelines his entire season.
Haven't players learned from that yet?
Yeah, right.
You would think.
At what point do we have to just kind of, throw it out there? It's like, hey, don't use your head.
I'm pretty sure they hear that since Little League baseball, and it's still, I guess, instinct or desperation or whatever happens, and you think that. I love guys who slide into first base as though you're getting there any quicker. It's just crazy. And you see it every year. Yeah, you see it every year. Like you actually, you're going quicker if you just keep running. Sliding is not going to get you there any faster.
Right.
But it happens, and I'm sure that like mid slide, I'm sure most brains are going, "Why the hell did you do that before they're even out.
It looks cool. It's fun.
I guess since
it's
anybody
an
who's played know that it doesn't look
play.
cool. Even.
It's an instinct play. You think that by diving headfirst and reaching out, you're going to get there faster than you are trying to run and step on the base. I mean, I was guilty of it playing baseball when I was younger.
You're a state champion at that too, Elliot.
No.
Are you going to surprise us again tonight? John, we didn't know this. I've known Elliot for like, what, a decade?
Yeah.
State champion wrestler. Most men would tell you that in the first 5 minutes they met you. Hey, man, how you doing? You guys want to be? Yeah, man, the guy. I was a state champion wrestler. All right, as soon as you meet him, Elliot waits 10 years to reveal that piece of information.
Those are the guys you got to look out for sure.
Know, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what other secrets are you hiding?
Yeah.
I don't want to. Don't answer that.
No, please answer that.
Just to close the loop on the wild card game, I will say, Lester pitched over his head the entire season. So all of his peripheral stats said he should have been a worse pitcher than he was. And Elliot is exactly right. Without injuries, maybe this team is better off because Bryant is the real Bryant or something like that. But the reality is Cubs still had a more talented team than the Rockies. They should have won that game. But when you leave your season down to one game, anything can happen. And if you don't score in that game, you're screwed. So, and
not
that's
only
why
that game,
I dwell on the fact
against
that
the Brewers, the play-in game.
Yep.
I mean, they should have won that game too. I mean, the starting pitching was way better, and I think teams are going to start to learn this as the playoffs go on. You don't throw strikes to Christian Yelich.
For sure.
Yeah.
You can't throw anything at that guy. At this point.
No.
That's
or
fair.
to Javier Baez, but apparently Adam Ottavino didn't get that memo. So I'm amazed at what Yelich has been able to string together. And, I mean, who would have guessed that these guys had, run off 11 or however many straight that they have. But, you got to give them credit. They went out and got Kane and they got Yelich and, they made these deals. They fielded what are the most idiotic infields that I saw in the second half for anybody. And they made it work somehow with no starting pitching. The Cardinals had much better pitching. The Cubs had much better position players, and the Brewers beat them both. So hats off to the Brewers. So,
well, what they did have was they had an offense that could score. And once you got to all their pitchers had to do was get to the fifth inning. And they had a bullpen with this conglomerate of these guys that last year – you really not very many people in baseball knew who these guys were, but everybody knows who they are now between Corey Knebel, Hader, Jeffries,
Joakim Soria.
I mean, these guys were shut down, and they were good. I mean, Hader, that guy is just ridiculous. I mean, he goes out there and he will strike you out on 3 pitches and then walk off.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's impressive, and that's one of those players I heard about most of the year, but I really didn't watch him closely until that last series where they swept the Cardinals, and the Cardinals got to him in one game. But then you see him pitch after that, and it was it is incredible, and it's baffling at the same time because when they made all those deals at the deadline, we're like, guys, you needed pitching. Why the hell are you bringing another second baseman in? Moustakas, is that what you really needed? But you know what? They're able to put enough together where they can, if they can't finesse you, they can just beat the hell out of you with a bat.
They got Moustakas all year, didn't they? And they brought in Scope.
Right.
When did they get Moustakas?
They got Moustakas at the All-Star break.
Yeah, that's right.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Because he ended up signing a 1-year deal with Kansas City after turning down the qualifying offer and all that stuff. But
that's right.
Yeah, so they dealt for him. So I remember Elliot was one of our shows. We're like, what the hell are they doing? This is not what they needed. They needed arms.
Yeah.
And
they have 5 second basemen. What is this going to do?
4 linebackers when they had Aguilar, Shaw, Scope, and Moustakas on the infield. It was like 4 linebackers with gloves. They called it the goal line defense.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good description for it, actually. So, there's not going to be many pretty defensive highlights on the Milwaukee Brewers on the infield anyway. But guys, I want to pivot a little bit here to Chris Bryant, and this is the topic that I'm going to let you lead it in, Elliot. Chris Bryant rejects an offer for an extension from Chicago. So I want to hear what this is all about from you Cubs fans.
So it's interesting. So this was based off of one of the podcasts that David Kaplan was in, and actually it has come out. Sadiq Sharma from The Athletic has said that actually it's not true.
Oh.
Yeah. So what Kaplan had said is that over the last few months or whatever, I think this is before the season and during the season, that Boris and Bryant were approached by the brass offering a $200+ million extension, and Bryant had turned it down. Bryant and Boris both had turned it down. But apparently that's not true. The only talk of extension, I believe, was just that, hey, do you want to talk about an extension? And they've just said no. So
that's a Boris thing, though. That's a Scott Boris thing. And are you telling me that somebody reported something on social media that wasn't true? Right?
It was in a podcast, and then
we've never
some guys. I think some people, some journalists, took it and ran with it and made it a headline, and then somebody had to come out and say, "Well, no, that's actually not true." So.
Wait. Just for clarification, you're saying that the initial source came from somebody on the podcast, and then a journalist picked that up?
David Kaplan has good sources. He has broke some stories before, so it's not. So I mean, you gotta believe him to what he says.
Yeah.
Okay.
But apparently, that's not the case this time.
Yeah, so, I thought that he himself was through ESPN, which is why I was confused. That changes everything there.
And I'm trying to think. I was listening to 670 The Score this afternoon, and I believe that I believe they said that Kaplan kind of had rowed back, and maybe he was a little bit more liberal with his words than he should have been during the podcast. So,
okay. I'm surprised Curry didn't smoke that story out. Smoked out the perpetrator here.
Yeah, he's usually out to just bust The Athletic. That's his main source of. I mean, especially The Athletic reporter that covers the Cardinals, right? Yeah, but he's got a particular soft spot for that guy. Yeah, I think $200 million deals for the most part haven't worked out well in Major League Baseball, no matter who they are. But yeah, if I were to offer it to one guy on the Cubs, Chris Bryant would probably be the guy that I would do that with. But again, as a Boris client, not likely. So
yeah, no. Yeah, you know that you guys know as well. We all know this on here that Boris is gonna want his agents or want his clients to go to free agency and get the best value that they can possibly get, and it's just kind of
he gets more money.
Right. I mean, and then we'll hear. I don't know how you feel about this, John, but we've talked about this a lot on the show. One of the things I look forward to the most in the off season is when the microphones get in front of Scott Boris at a winter meeting and just hearing what flies out of his mouth is maybe as entertaining as reading. I don't know if you guys follow Cato Kalin on Twitter, but if you don't, you need to. He's getting crazier every year, and so I love it when a crowd gathers around him with microphones, because his sales pitch every year just gets a little more insane, and I can't wait to hear what's in store this year.
Well, especially for looking at the Cubs and Boris wanting to put them in a one-down position, which he feels the Cubs have been unfair to several of his clients. He's been outspoken on this point. I try not to mention Boris's name because I feel like we're only making the matters worse when we actually mention the agents. But
I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to throw gas on this fire.
The devil type of thing.
After the 2021 season, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Elliot, I think Baez, Schwarber, Bryant, and Rizzo are all up that same year. So they will all be free agents after the 2021 season. Boris happens to represent the guy that is going to get the largest contract of those four, as we see it right now, as long as injuries don't derail that. Not that Baez can't make a case for it, but ultimately, I think he wants to take this guy to free agency. I'd be shocked if and the Cubs know that. I'd be shocked if there's any discussion going on now, unless they thought with this injury, maybe it's a good time to negotiate because maybe his value might be down just a little bit in the scheme of things. Maybe he's willing to take a guarantee. It's the first time he's ever been hurt in his life. maybe he's looking at this and reassessing it. But so I could see where it might be plausible that they approach him, but there's no way in hell, unless he's going to fire his agent, that he's going to do an extension.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough for the Cubs that 2021 offseason. That's when you may see the next tank. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be.
You're predicting a tank.
Everybody's got to rebuild it.
It's gonna be tough. Okay. I mean, you can only hold on to these guys for so long. So I don't know. It's definitely gonna be interesting. And I'm trying to pull up when these. I was
wondering why your eyes were tracking in a weird direction. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so you're trying to pull something up. That's fine. I had hold on. I had one more Cub topic on here because I wanted to get to.
Well, I got a question here real fast.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, John, you were talking about if you were going to offer a $200+ million contract to anyone, that it would be for Bryant. So this is two questions. One, I want to ask Elliot, if you had to give that kind of contract to anyone, would you also choose Bryant over Baez and Schwarber? And who was the other person on that list?
Rizzo.
Rizzo's
on an extension right now. Yeah, they bought out his arbitration years.
Okay.
In 2021, Rizzo will be 31.
Wait, let's see. 2021 is how many years from now? 3?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 32, right? He goes 28, 29 this year. So, yeah. 31, 32.
Around there. Yeah.
Bryant's going to be 28, 29.
Same for
in
Baez.
2021.
Yeah.
Same for Baez. Schwarber will be 27.
No, I think
really?
He's 26, right?
No, he's 24.
Okay, all right.
Oh,
sorry.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, so he'll be 27. So if Schwarber is still on the Cubs come that time, I mean he's got a lot to prove. I mean it's really between the big money is going to be between Baez and Bryant, especially if Baez keeps improving the way that he has the last few years. It's gonna be ridiculous what the Cubs would have to pay to keep both of those guys.
You guys,
we're also gonna have Machado and Harper on the payroll. So it's just gonna be
Jesus Christ!
Every show.
Break in here. You are dancing around a huge variable. And according to your guy for Bleacher Nation, Mr. Michael Cerami, who I love when that guy makes a declaration because they never come to fruition. Schwarber's absolutely going to be a monster this year.
We said, let the guy play first.
Yes,
I mean, this is kind of like crowning Ohtani before the season.
Why did you say it, man? I haven't even thought about him for like a week, Elliot. You bring up Ohtani.
Here
Rookie
we go.
of the year.
Why don't you just talk about the Padres too? Son of a bitch. Padres.
I personally, I want Schwarber as a person to do well. I'm not saying I want that to extend to the Cubs, but I want him to do well because when he was sent back down to AAA there for a little while.
Stay on the show.
Okay, hold on. Listen, hear me out. Everyone was trashing on him so hard. The local stores had his jersey on like 75% discount. And it just kind of made me sad for a little bit. So I was glad when Schwarber just got sent back up just because the poor guy got beaten up so badly.
Well, and Elliot, this is going to be a repeat for you. But as hard of times I've given that guy, and I've done it because of the way the fans talked about him in 2015, 16,
right.
It was, as the rival, you're like, okay, I'm tired of hearing it. But here's the credit I do give to Kyle Schwarber, regardless of the year he had this year. He didn't have a great 17. And so he tried to do something about it. And that's what I give him credit for. He went and he transformed his body and he got into shape. If there's any credit I'll give somebody, it's not sitting back and just thinking my talent will take over, that he actually transformed himself and he, lost a ton of weight, showed up at the winter meetings looking like a completely different person. And so I give him a ton of credit for that. So there's a small percentage of me that was like, all right, well, you know what? I hope this guy can bounce back. I don't want him to be a Babe Ruth, obviously, because that would be, that's self-serving for me. I don't want him to be that good, but I also don't want to see a player that has that kind of ability I don't want to see them flame out. And believe me, guys, when I say that, it really sucks that Kerry Wood didn't have the career he could have had because of injury. It really sucks that a guy like Mark Pryor was basically done after a few injuries because his body just would not recover. Nobody wants to see that. Even on a rival team, nobody wants to see that. I didn't want to see Schwarber, be bust back and forth between Iowa and eventually just fizzle out. We saw that with our own Alan Craig, Recklin, where that guy was just he was fantastic in 2013. I mean, his power numbers weren't great, but I mean the way he was just a pure hitter was awesome. Had an injury and could never come back from it, and that's never what you want to see. That's not good for baseball in general when you have talented young men like this and they just for some reason just lose it and then never get it back. So there's credit I'll give him, and that's he tried to do something about it. I'm going to get myself in better shape.
Yeah.
All right. Here's your 2021 post 2021 season. Chicago Cubs free agents: Anthony Rizzo, Addison Russell, Kyle Schwarber, Mike Montgomery, Javier Baez, Chris Bryant. That's
a pretty big class, man.
Russell won't be around for that. Nor will Montgomery.
No.
And I would even venture to say I don't think Schwarber will be around for that. Honestly, Schwarber or Happ and maybe even Almora, all are on the block this year in the offseason.
I want to tackle that with you, John. I mean, I want to go right there. I mean, so, Theo made some statements, and you can read into them, when the season was over about, I'm going to paraphrase as much as I can remember, but basically the message was, it was kind of like, we're not going to overvalue anything right now. We're not going to make that mistake. And so the way I kind of took that message was, there are players that are their positions, their status among the team is in jeopardy. They're no longer looking at guys based on the talent they have. It's based on the results they're producing.
Correct. So, because these guys all sort of came up together, the evaluation on them has always been based on potential, not on performance, because you didn't have performance to look at. Now you have enough seasons here that you can look at this stuff. And granted, Schwarber lost an entire season to a traumatic knee injury, came back and hit in the World Series. It's epic, right? But
it was disgusting, but yes.
Yeah. And then had a terrible year the next year because he probably didn't rehab properly, honestly. This year he put up a 823 OPS, maybe a 115-ish OPS plus. He was a productive hitter, but he probably is, as we've always thought, an American League player. His defense was maybe a little bit better this year, but his range is still terrible. He throws well. And the main reason he throws so many people out is because everybody thinks they can run on him because they don't respect him as an outfielder. So I think the Cubs are stuck with Hayward as an albatross in that outfield, and the only place where his bat comes close to playing is in center field, even if his glove doesn't play as well there. And if you're going to go out and get a Bryce, you want to stick him in right field, and ideally you'd like to stick Bryant in left and maybe go get another hitter to stick at third base potentially. So, I think that's how they want to remake this, and that makes the team better defensively. But I don't know if Schwarber plays into those plans or not. You can also platoon Almora and Hayward in center field and have a decent platoon there, because Almora really doesn't hit right-handed pitching all that well, and Hayward doesn't hit left-handed pitching all that well. So, with one exception, the guy Adam Morgan from the Phillies, who hit a grand slam off of. But other than that, he doesn't hit left-handed pitching. They have a lot of, kind of like the Cardinals had this mismatched roster the last couple of years where it was really hard to come up with a good flow of guys that could hit and play defense, and field a lineup. Cubs are kind of in that position right now because you got, a 36-year-old Zobrist who's probably earned some more playing time next year. And, I don't know where you're putting him. Are you putting him in the outfield? Are you putting him at second base? Is Russell going to be part of this team next year? I think they have to try to let him rehabilitate his value a little bit. So when he comes off a suspension in late April, they're going to say and do the right things as far as the issue, the domestic violence issue. And, everybody's going to go through a lot more training, and he's going to, be contrite about this stuff. They're going to try to let him play up his value a little bit, and then they're going to try to trade him to another market. So, and then I think you got Baez as your shortstop at that point, or as Elliot said, Machado.
How are they going to build up Russell's value when Machado's playing in shortstop?
Yeah, I have a feeling if they are able to get either one of those guys, it would probably be Harper, but I don't know that for a fact. It makes more sense to me, but who knows?
Well, we have to consider the argument I saw on Twitter go along for a while that Chris Bryant and Harper are best friends. So obviously he's going to go over to the Cubs.
Brecklin, do you know who Manny Machado's best friend is?
Oh, please inform me.
Albert Almora Jr.
Oh, no.
They grew up together.
They grew up together and went to high school together.
Oh, no. Well, and again, I'll go back to your favorite guy on Twitter, Elliot, or Pete's, or Michael Cerami had a tweet out there with a Cub executive with a hat on, as a cartoon character, deciding which button to push, Machado or Harper. He said the Cubs season in a nutshell, as though they are the only ones that have the choice between the two.
Yeah, I know. And I was just reading today that the Yankees have $100 million in the bank to spend on free agents
which is incredible when you think about they've absorbed a Stanton contract, like almost all of it. Like they ate all of it.
Yeah, their total payroll the last few years has been somewhere around the $265 million mark, and somehow they cut it $60 million this year to.
Here's the, I don't know why this just popped in my head. This is a visual that just popped in my head. So you got all the free agents on a boat out in the ocean, small boat, and then a whale just comes up and swallows the whole thing, and it's got a Yankees logo on the side of it. It's just the visual that just popped in my head. I think that might be that's not. I don't think that's too far fetched, but I don't think the Yankees are going to sign both. I don't think they. I'm sure there's without knowing the math about having the numbers in front of me, I'm sure there's a luxury tax implication at some point in time that they're going to be up against. But to hear that they have $1 million or $100 million to spend, Elliot, is pretty frightening, to be honest. I mean,
absolutely.
It'd be take us back to 1998, 99 when whatever high talented, high price ticket free agent was going on the market, you automatically knew where they were going.
Right.
Go back to Giambi, go back to whoever else. The Yankees are going to eat that. They're going to swallow it whole like a pelican, and it's down the throat.
I love when you get into these things and after the first sentence, you're just like, where is Ron going? Are we gonna... I loved it. So I'm not going to let my internet cut out for just a second there. And so it started out, all the free agents are on a boat, and it ended going to be eaten up like a pelican.
No. That's obviously chopped up on you. I was said that free agents are on a little boat partying out there somewhere. A whale is feasting on plankton, but accidentally swallows the whole boat, and it has a Yankee logo on the side of it.
Oh,
that's what I think. That's just a cartoon that was playing in my head. It makes no sense at all.
I wasn't sure where it was going. I was hoping it wasn't like all of the free agents are riding in the back of Oscar Taveras' car.
Oh, Jesus. No. Too soon. Oh, knife in the kidney. Shit.
I would hope that, so Pete, I'm trying to fill in for Pete.
Okay, now it makes sense. All right. All right, so we're going to transition over to the red here for a second, and Breck, I want to start with you on this. So Adam Wainwright returns back for 1 year, signs a 1 year deal. I don't know the terms of this deal yet. I don't know that it's been revealed. I'm assuming it's pretty light dollars, but he's coming back. Just your thoughts.
Well, first off, I mean, all season he was talking about that, he's not done. He's got more in the tank. He's wanting to do things. And throughout the season, everyone was assuming that this was going to be the end. And everyone was kind of questioning, how much do you have left in the tank for this season? So when looking at it from just talking about Adam Wainwright, not even talking about his stats or how he's been performing, it's nice to see that he's getting to go out and do what he's wanting to do. I mean, my heart goes out to Wainwright. I absolutely love him as a person. I think he's a spectacular ball player. But when you look at his performance, I mean, better there, but it's one of those things like I do. I'm going to put
we're losing
my trust in him for that.
Pearman, are you hearing the same thing? Or
but
Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit, Brecklin. Hopefully, it's back now. There you are.
Okay.
Hello.
You're on
all
auto.
of that.
Well, we got. I think we got most of it, but you went on auto tune there for a little bit. Sounded cool.
Oh, gotcha. Well, I'm glad that I'm getting that experience today. I'm broadcasting from my parents' home. I know my little brother had his final football game of the season, so I surprised him by coming home to see him. But that means that I'm working off of a tiny hotspot thing that is located in the other room. So I apologize if it's
that's
not
okay.
working.
That's okay. We get it. We get it, and it's a miracle that I'm able to do this tonight. We had a power issue here with the storm that went through, but it's we're okay now. The Adam Wainwright signing, I'm not surprised when I heard that he said he wasn't done yet. I was assuming that they were going to make room for him, and I'm okay with this because I see this as a kind of a no risk thing for the Cardinals. The dollars, although we don't know them right now, I imagine that they're pretty light, that they're not really going to impact their whatever they signed, whatever they hurled Adam Wainwright is not going to hinder any other moves they're going to make or thinking of making. So I think it's a no risk, potential high reward, depending on what kind of shape he ends up being in spring training. If he can get healed up, if he can get right, what are they going to get out of him? What I don't want to see the Cardinals do, I don't want to see the front office do at this point, is declare what role he's going to be right now. I think they leave it totally open, let him go into spring training, and let his performance and Mike Schilt's assessment dictate what role he's going to fill. Is it going to be a bullpen? Is he going to perform well enough where, you know what, we can slot him in as that fifth starter because he's performed well enough. I hope they just leave it open, let spring training play out and see what role he can best help the team. What I don't want them to keep him around for is I'm going to steal a page from Bernie Miklasz here, which I probably shouldn't, but I don't want them to hold on to him from nostalgia. I love what Adam Wainwright's done. I've got a lot of respect for him. I'm glad he was able to come back and contribute at the end of the year. I thought it would have been a very nice way to go out, but he's adamant on doing one more. As long as it helps the team, I'm all for it, but I don't want them to make any declarations going in. I want spring training and everything to play out before they tell us what his role is, not before. So let's just hope they take that path.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Out of all the things that the front office could be doing right now, signing Adam Wainwright for an additional year and not declaring, because they haven't said either how much money or what position that is. Yeah. So, like, with the information we have right now, this is not the thing I'm going to be mad at the front office for. I'm glad we get to see Wainwright longer. You know, I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying. I don't want them to determine right now what he's doing because we've got a lot of time between now and then. But yeah, I mean, I'm not upset. I'm actually really excited for it.
Well, we'll get into it later. You guys heard me go off like a bottle rocket about this last week about just Mozeliak's rhetoric going in, and John, I'm sure you're familiar with it too, and I'm sure Dan is. The reason I bring up I don't want them declaring what he's going to do right now is because we've heard Mo do that before. They signed Luke Gregerson, right? Who's excited about Luke Gregerson? But they signed him last year, and before spring training starts, well, we've got a closer. Look, we got a reliever. Check. Hold on, man. First of all, let me ask you guys this. Brecca, I'm curious your opinion here, guys. Hold for 1 second. The word comfortable. When you use the word comfortable to describe anything, like last week I said that's a pair of boxer shorts, that's shoes, that's a shirt. But I was thinking about this deeper. Like, what's more impactful? We're emotional as Cardinal fans. We're like deprived. We haven't had a team in the postseason for 3 years. So imagine, Brecklin, that someday you're gonna get married. You're gonna go to the altar. Somebody's gonna ask your soon-to-be husband, "Do you take Brecklin to be your ... What if your husband turned to you and said, "Yeah, I'm comfortable with that"?
Okay. First off, let's not sully my name by thinking that I was going to let that fly.
We feel the same way when Mo talks about an aspect of our team going in and he says, "We're comfortable." No, man.
I'm comfortable with that. I see the talent in her.
Right. Imagine that. Not I
think that she has what it takes.
Yeah. Wait, I'm marrying a female? Check. I mean, that's not good enough, Mo. It's not comfortable. Isn't good enough. Comfortable is a pair of boxer shorts, not your bullpen. So I want to hear conviction in his voice. I don't want him to use the word comfortable. I don't want him to say the phrase, "We like the team we have," because that just
if I could give the type of statements that he gives, it's almost as though you didn't even have to watch the games, know the roster, anything like that. If you have just the basic thing of like, make them stop asking, quitting anything, that's well, we're comfortable because it's not helping. Can you hear me?
You froze up at the perfect time. I'm comfortable like that.
Oh no.
That's okay.
Oh no.
I know where you're going.
I know talking going there. And I watched Elliot's face and it just froze there. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be lovely.
Well, sometimes he does that anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So sum up what I just said. If you can give the type of rhetoric that he has is the same that you could have from someone who doesn't know anything about the Cardinals, but just knows that we need to move on with the line of questioning.
Yeah.
Anyone could give that kind of speech, and that is so annoying.
Yeah, I know.
If I could give that speech, then that's anyway.
Yeah. I think this is a general question for all of us. We look at big names this offseason. Obviously, there are two like 800-pound gorillas available as free agents. And I want just an honest thought, and I'm going to go round table here. John, I want to start with you. Manny Machado, given everything that we know, given that he's still playing meaningful games right now, and emotion could be, if the Dodgers are able to go deep, they're able to go all the way. I'm sure there's going to be emotions tied to that too. Now, there's still an agent to deal with, right? The super agent, right? Is Boris, hold on, I might be wrong. Is Machado a Boris client?
Yes, I believe he is.
That guy is going to get the biggest payday this offseason maybe he ever is. Boris going to set a first question? Is Boris going to set a record this offseason for himself?
I wish it wasn't the case, but yeah, he should, just off of one of those guys alone, let alone both.
Right.
And I don't know who represents Patrick Corbin, but the Yankees are going to sign him too. So that's going to be another big contract, even though he's lost about 5 miles an hour on his fastball. But I do think Machado's going to New York, if that's what you're asking. I think that's where he'll end up. I don't think LA likes him.
Really? Okay. What about Harper, John, before we move on to Elliott?
I think there's a good chance that he stays in Washington. I think that the Yankees and the Phillies are also potential suitors there. I think Cubs make the most sense for him, but I don't know if the Cubs are as interested in him as he is in them. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh.
But this is what it's going to take. It's going to take $300 million. And, I think there are 12. I think I saw a stat on this, and I wish I remembered it well, but just trust me when I say there were 12 people that signed $200 million deals, and none of them have worked out well. I can't imagine a $300 million deal works out much better. And the $185 million deal the Cubs did certainly hasn't worked out very well.
No, and John, I want to come back to that because I think you bring up a good point. And we've touched on that here on this show a few times about let's take inventory of just big names, big contracts that we've known over the last decade. Like, how many have we seen fail versus succeed? I want to come back to that, though. Before I do, Elliot, your prediction on these two big 800-pound gorillas, like, what do you think is going to happen here?
All
right, Brecklin.
I haven't heard anything about Machado not being liked in LA. I would have to imagine that they like him. Especially what he's done for them. I mean, a lot of times, maybe the relationship's not there, but if the player's good, I'm sure they're willing to give it a chance. We'll see. So I have a feeling he may stay in LA. I mean, I think that would be easiest probably for him and for the team is just to keep him, throw him a bunch of money. But the Yankees having a lot of money, that's going to be really enticing to him. So could be LA. I'm leaning more towards LA. Could be the Yankees. I have to think that the Cubs are 100% in on Bryce Harper. I mean, everybody has been talking about it. I mean, I'm sure a part of that is maybe even appeasing Bryant and keeping him there, maybe possibly getting him to sign with them, home discounts, something in 2021. I know it's never going to happen because he's a Boris client. Yeah, one can hope and dream though.
A boy can dream.
A boy can dream.
That's a lot of money though. When you throw Harper in there and when all those contracts are up, I mean that's a lot of resources to very few players. I mean that's
absolutely true.
A hard thing to.
This is why I don't think that Rizzo is going to finish his career with the Cubs, is because the Cubs will probably choose Bryant over paying Rizzo unless Rizzo takes a friendly contract at his 31-age season. So,
well, he may have to. I mean, he may have to at that point. I mean, I'm not going to jump ahead.
These guys really like each other, and I would have to think that some of these guys may take less money just to remain.
Well, we'll see. Brecklin, same question to you, real quick. Where do you think these guys are going to go?
Well, first I have to ask, you don't think they're both going to the Cardinals? What?
No.
You even having a doubt with that?
No, not at all. No. I just gave my vote away, but I'll tell you where I think they're going. But no, not St. Louis.
I think I agree with Elliot on Machado. But besides that, I mean, I'm going to be honest, I don't know a whole bunch about this whole contract thing just because I'm still new to learning how these things go. And of course, it's going to be whatever the most appealing deal is. And now I can only think of your visualization of the whale eating the free agents. Yeah, exactly. Oh, do you have the sandwich bit? This is the time.
No. But we can't ask Kyle what he thinks. Just hold on a second. Kyle, free agents, what do you think?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Valuable. But yeah, so I think it's going to be interesting to see where they really end up, just because they are such big names. And I don't know, this is kind of new territory for me, so I'm afraid to jump into that too much.
For any baseball writers, sites, fans, I mean, Twitter is going to be the winter meeting time is going to be one of those things where people are constantly like swiping down on their Twitter screen on their phone, like looking for an update like every 5 seconds, like a junkie. I think that's what it's going to end up being. But Brecklin, no, the Cardinals are not going to sign either of those two. They're not. They're
breaking
not.
My heart.
It is not because I don't want either of them. That's not a game the Cardinals win. I mean, we all know that here, right? That's on here. The Cardinals don't win. They don't win on bringing a guy in cold off the street, especially like an A-list actor. Like they don't win that.
Why
sure,
are we
they
talking
can sign
about Adam.
What?
I said, why are we talking about
hold on. Adam Maurer would sign with the Cardinals in a heartbeat. Adam Maurer might sign with us, or actually, we would sign with him.
You were saying A-list actors, I was just assuming.
But they're not going to. They don't win that game. They never really have. They might sign a Mike Leake or a Johnny Peralta or somebody like that, or a Dexter Fowler that's not in like extremely high demand. Like they'll come through sometimes in the offseason on that. When you're talking about like the biggest names, Cardinals have never won that game, ever. So I don't put them in play here. I don't have any false expectations. I don't even have any hopes. I mean, if that happened, I might do a standing backflip. I've never done one before, but if that actually happened, I might try one here.
That would be amazing.
All right, I'm putting it on record because it's not going to happen anyway.
But probably hear a spine or a neck snap. But anyway, I don't predict any of that happening. So I think that Harper. I don't know why, guys. I mean, I don't know why, but I see Harper going somewhere like a Philadelphia, an upstart, a team with a lot of financial resources that are moving forward. They've got a plan. I can see them going like all in, big presentation, throwing stupid money at him and him landing there. I can see that happening. Maybe it's because Jason Worth had a similar beard and hair. Maybe that's why he's in Philadelphia. Maybe
there you go.
A much better version of Jason Worth. But I see the Machado thing, and guys, this is going to sound maybe crazy, but I see some obscure, stupid ass team that has no business signing a free agent like this. I see a team like that stepping out of the shadows.
Seattle.
Orioles.
Yes! That's it. You got it. That was exactly what I was going to say. Like no business at all signing a player like that, stepping in and still being like bland. Like even though they signed a player like that, it's just bland for forever. Like,
well, that's what the Giants.
That's
what the San Francisco Giants have been doing the last couple of years. They've been signing one guy they shouldn't sign, and it has been skewing their payroll further up while they win fewer games. Yeah,
and have no farm system.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
They could be like the Angels, where they have the best player in all of baseball that nobody ever gets to watch, and he has great seasons.
Never on Sunday Night Baseball because it's the Angels.
Right, and he's never in a playoff game.
And they can't put anybody around him because they're paying over $200 million to Pujols, another of the bad $200 million contracts.
And for 5 years, they were paying Josh Hamilton to not play for them.
Correct.
It sounds like the plan where you're trying to like lose weight and you're on a diet. So what you do is spend extra money to add a salad to your Happy Meal. And that's
a great way to put it, Brecklin. That is maybe the best way to put Artie Moreno's dieting habits, his spending. Let me go out and try to purchase myself into contention. Let me go out and try to buy my way into the conversation in baseball, and it backfired on him. That is lovely to see. When I guess the downside of that is I want more owners to do stupid shit like that. But when Artie Moreno does it, then other owners might be smart enough to take notice. And so, Artie Moreno tried to buy his way with C.J. Wilson. Wow, I've recalled that name. Can you guys believe that? Wow. C.J. Wilson and Albert Pujols in that offseason, and they had a whole love fest. It was wonderful. It was like Woodstock for LA Angels fans out there. And they thought everything was, we've arrived. We've arrived back. We're going to win it. And they haven't done shit since. So it's been wonderful. And then they brought in Hamilton the next year for 5 years on a $125 million deal. And then they paid him to go back to his old team, which is even more funny. But with Machado, I can totally see a team that has no business doing it, stepping in and actually doing it. And Elliot, you stole my thunder, you son of a bitch. I was going to say the Mariners. The Mariners are guilty. The Mariners are guilty of doing this like year in and year out. Like they signed Cano, and what have they done?
Nothing.
Another bad $200 million contract. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. So let's go there. So we've all given our vote on that. So kind of to get us towards the end of the show here, John, I think you sounds like you have some bullets in the chamber there on free agent contracts, big ones that have been signed over the years. We've talked about on the show a lot. But let's take a little bit of inventory here on who we can think of.
Well, A-Rod twice, right? So
right.
A-Rod signed two $200 million contracts. Greinke, that one's not working out well in Arizona. I mean, he had an okay year, but that for the most part, that's been a bad contract. That was a horrible one. Prince Fielder, $200 million contract.
Awful.
Yep. Cano, Pujols.
What was Alfonso Soriano? What was he at? Yep.
Yeah, Soriano didn't hit 200 million.
He was close though.
Yeah. His was 150, I think, as I recall. But don't quote me on that. But that's about right. But it was way too much. Yeah.
What was Jason Giambi's?
I don't remember Giambi's, but it wasn't 200. I don't think.
No, it wasn't either. But it was still a bust. I mean, it had to be right for the Yankees.
Somebody said there were 12 of them. I don't know the 12 off the top of my head. I'm pretty close to that with what I just listed there. And Stanton's right now, the Yankees would walk away from that if they could, if somebody would take it. The Cardinals take it last year, and he wouldn't go. And you're lucky he didn't. And really, in the scheme of things. So I don't think, and that's why if I'm going to make an argument against the Cubs doing the Harper thing, it's not because I don't think that he'd be a good player for the Cubs. I just don't think, with the dead money they have on Darvish right now, that they don't know what that's going to amount to, the money they sunk on Chatwood, the money they're going to have to pay to some free agents in a few years, and the fact that these guys think they're smarter than everybody else, so they think they can find another Schwarber or another Happ or something like that, and they can get themselves to a 900 OPS between the players that they can find and sign and bring along. I think that they won't invest in a Harper because they think they can build a Harper or find a Harper. But I may be completely off on that. And I'm not basing that on anything other than, watching these guys work and thinking that, they feel like they're the smartest guys in the room, and they might be part of the time. But I don't think they're going to spend all their money on this guy.
Okay. So I think, John, you might be trying that reverse psychology that the Cubs are going to get swept next series and then they don't. So I think you're talking. I think you're trying to do voodoo here and say they're not signing one of those guys.
I go on a limb and say the Cardinals are not signing Harper.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of conviction there too that they are absolutely not going to sign either of them.
Is smart. He's calling the Diamondbacks right now because I think they're selling everything, and you should go get Goldschmidt.
Goldschmidt, Pollock is a free agent though, and so that could be a possibility for the Cardinals. We've heard that rumor surface, but
mistake of taking Bader out of center field. You've had like 6 center fielders in the last.
We tried to buy one from you, and it didn't work.
Free advice from a Cub fan. He's the best center fielder in the National League. Let that kid play. Keep him there.
Yeah.
No, I think most sane Cardinal fans are with you. Like, he needs to just have everyday steady Eddie time out there, and if he can't, it's his job to lose, in my opinion. So it should be anyway.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, guys, we've went over an hour, and I would love to keep going, but I know that we all have lives to get on with, and Brecklin has a family to visit. Elliot has, I'm not really sure what Elliot's going to do after this, but bedtime. Yeah. It's night time for me too. John, thank you so much for stepping in for Pete this week. It's been great having you on. Great talking to you.
Thank you.
How's Dan holding up? I was going to ask you that at the beginning.
He had a rough end of the year. Like a lot of Cardinal fans, he did not take it well. In fact, we actually did not make it in front of the microphone a couple times, and it was just because he couldn't bring himself to do it. It was too hard to talk. So when
like
the Brewers
this week, Pete couldn't do it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. The Brewers put it to all of us. So, I have a happy wife.
Yes,
she's from Sheboygan, Wisconsin. We're actually going to go to Game 2 up there. But
cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other than that, it's been bad for all of us.
All right. Well, we can't thank you enough for joining us. It's been great having you on. I guess Elliot, do you know Pete's lines here?
I do. I got this.
Brecklin,
Excuse you.
Hey.
I completely pulled this last time, and I even sent a SOS to Pete because I forgot to write it down.
Thank God.
Came in to help. May I take the liberty to do a little shout out real fast?
It depends. But go
ahead.
Kind
of depends. What?
No, go ahead.
It's to the only other Cardinals fan that I have in my family.
Oh, and yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah. Not to my sister, who's the Cubs fan of the family, but to my brother.
Or your
sister.
Name we won't say. Right? Is she frozen? Or is she just speechless?
You completely cut out through all that, so I only got to see the air quotes that was going on.
I'm sorry. That's fine. Keep going.
But no, my little shout out was going to be my little brother. It's actually very cute. He wanted to watch me do the show live, and he wanted to hear you guys because you can't when I'm using this microphone. So he's in the watching it because he was so tired after playing his last football game. So I just wanted to give him a little shout out and tell him that he did a good job because he was wanting to see you guys on the podcast and thought it was such a cool thing. So little shout out to him. He was so tuckered out that he didn't make it all the way. But
too bad. Well, he can watch it later.
Yeah,
he can watch it later. But
it's still going on live on his phone. I see that, but he's like all tucked into the couch because he just passed out.
He's out.
So
okay, well,
yeah, little fan, but
glad he was able to watch a little bit of it.
Yeah,
big sister.
All right.
So
with that. When we're not live on YouTube, you can find us on Facebook at Team of Rivals Podcast, on Twitter at Team of Rivals Pod, and on Instagram at Team of Rivals Podcast. You can contact us at the show at teamofrivalspodcast.com. On Twitter, you can find Elliot at
TOR_Elliot.
Ron at
TOR_Ron75.
John, where can we find you?
At Cubs Cards Cast.
Okay. And yours truly at Carry On Cards. And catch us anywhere you listen to podcasts, such as iTunes, Radio Public, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, and Google Play. Of course, if you love us and want to support us, make sure you tune into Radio Public. That is our preferred platform because it does throw a couple of pennies our way every time you listen. And don't forget to visit the team store on Zazzle.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Like what I bought this lovely shirt on.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes, it's available on there. All right, John, hang on after the music here. We'll talk to you. Brecklin, Elliot, John, have a good week. And folks, we'll be back here on the show next week. Hell or high water. I don't know what we're going to talk about. We might just get drunk.
Hopefully not high water.
Oh yeah.
Fine.
Choose your words wisely there, friend.
No, I never do. All right. We'll talk to everybody next week. We love you all so much. Bye-bye.